Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday evening, July 13th, 7 p.m. We have a full schedule tonight. We have 3 presentations, 4 committee meetings, and then followed by a special session where we'll be reading some ordinances. So we're hoping everybody can be timely on some of the public presentations. We will have a 3-minute limit, and there is a buzzer that goes off. Don't be alarmed by it, but as you come up to speak, we'll ask you to announce your name and your residence. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll start off with City and Safety Services Committee. Our chairperson is Mr. Steve Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. The first presentation tonight is going to be the multi-jurisdictional natural hazard mitigation plan, which has been a long time coming, I believe. It's had several different iterations. And our city planner, Paul Logue, is going to be presenting on that particular topic tonight.
Am I on?
You're on.
You're on.
Good evening, council. 3 minutes, is that all, Chris?
Not for you.
I can go really fast.
When we have citizen comments.
It's a very good evening to be talking about natural hazard mitigation planning. As you know, there's a significant windstorm and flooding coming into the region. And so I think it's very appropriate that we discuss this evening. Has everybody had a chance to at least skim the multi-jurisdictional natural hazard mitigation plan? I believe I emailed out copies to everybody last week. If you didn't have a chance, that's okay too. I'll just cover some of the basics. This is an update to actually the 2010 natural hazard mitigation plan that we did. The previous planning was always done piecemeal. The city of Athens did their own. Albany did one. Unincorporated Athens County did one, Chauncey, Gloucester, etc. For the update, the Ohio Emergency Management, they recommended, if possible, for rural communities, that they try to do a multi-jurisdictional planning approach, recognizing that when natural hazards occur, that they don't occur typically within an isolated area. They're usually region-wide. Especially flooding and blizzards and cold and wind storms, etc. And so you're going to have a lot of collaboration among different levels: the sheriffs, fire departments, volunteers, 911, Red Cross, etc. And so they thought it was better that we try to approach it from a collaborative environment and submit one plan for the entirety of Athens County. And as part of that process, each of the individual municipalities and villages, as well as the county, needs to adopt the plan individually, so that the city of Athens, if we need federal hazard mitigation funds after a disaster, we have to have an approved plan in order to qualify for those funds. The city of Nelsonville actually has been waiting for funds for several years from the derecho event to tear down a few structures, and they were being postponed because this plan was in limbo. And then once this was just passed and approved at the state level back in March, Nelsonville adopted, I think, in April or May, and those funds have been awarded to them. So there is a reason why we want to do this stuff. Just a few of the highlights from the plan itself. The purpose statement, I think, is very relevant. I'll read that to you. It's only a paragraph. The Athens County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan identifies local hazard mitigation goals and objectives and specific mitigation actions to implement over the long term that will result in reduction in risk and potential for future losses associated with the occurrence of natural hazards. The participating entities developed a mitigation action plan that will be adopted and implemented by each participating community. This plan was produced to reduce the impact of natural hazards on citizens, infrastructure, private property, and critical facilities through a combined effort of communities, institutions, and residences. And as I said earlier, the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires that a natural hazard mitigation plan be developed and adopted to be eligible for several forms of federal disaster relief. The plan identifies 5 goals. I think that they're probably pretty obvious to you. Facilitate and coordinate solutions to multi-jurisdictional issues that involve government, citizens, stakeholders, and policymakers at all levels. The second goal is to minimize human, economic, and environmental disruption from natural hazards. The third is to educate and encourage property owners to take action to decrease their vulnerability to the impacts of natural hazards. The fourth is to improve the disaster resistance of existing buildings, structures, critical facilities, as well as infrastructure, whether new construction, expansion, or renovation. And the fifth is to encourage hazard mitigation planning and incorporate that planning into other related plans. Additionally, the plan, it identified 16 natural hazards that are a significant threat to Athens County. You can probably guess what the largest one is, or the most obvious is flooding. Within the city of Athens specifically, flooding is our major risk. We have 28% of the land within the city limits of Athens is in a FEMA-regulated floodplain. Additionally, we have 29% of our real estate is in moderate landslip potential areas, and then an additional 13.5% is in severe landslip areas. So we have over 70% of our land is in either a floodplain or in a moderate to severe slip hillside. Doesn't leave too much land left that actually would not be addressed in this plan. The other lands would be impacted by things such as blizzards, which is our third most likely risk, high winds, thunderstorms, cold, heat waves, ice storms, hailstorms, drought. Landslides are actually at the bottom, the third from the bottom, but in Athens, the city of Athens, they're extremely high risk. And then wildfire and subsidence. Those are the major risks in Athens County. All of those issues are trying to be addressed in this plan. The goals, those 5 goals are all also trying to achieve ways to minimize the risks and impacts of those hazards. A few other things I really wanted to note. The plan identifies what are the critical facilities that are at high risk during a natural disaster, and within the city of Athens, we have several critical facilities that are in high-risk locations just because of our topography again. Oblenis Hospital, the Red Cross headquarters, the Southeast Ohio Emergency Management Station number 1, the Kimes Reservoir, which is on the south side of Athens, is in a severe slip location. The Peach Ridge Road Water Tower, as well as the County Engineers Depot and the ODOT facility on Union Street. All of those are within our critical facilities that could be severely impacted by a significant natural hazard. Those are important to note. Another reason why we're doing this plan is because of the value of all this real estate and the potential impacts from a natural disaster, both to our occupations, our livelihoods, as well as how do we rebuild. And if you look at the fire, the Union Street fire is a good example, actually. It's not necessarily a natural hazard, but a fire that impacts 4 or 5 buildings significantly impacts all of Athens or uptown Athens. So if you have a major flood event, that could impact thousands of structures within our valley. And it would be devastating to our local economy if we had to deal with that. So this plan is trying to identify ways that we can minimize those risks, how we can communicate better, how we can get people out of danger, how we can get things built that are of better standards, ideally, how we can communicate with property owners, developers, and encourage better design, perhaps, but also how we all communicate as elected officials, as administrators, as first responders, so that we're all on the same page and how we're focusing on these issues. I don't have too much else to address, I would, for the sake of time, but I would like to point out, if you have the appendix in the back of the plan, which is appendix 15, that identifies all of the activities and tasks that are going to be achieved through this planning process. There is a natural hazard planning committee that the Athens County Planner convenes. We meet on a quarterly basis. I serve on that. Mayor Weil serves on that, and Fire Chief Rob Reimer, he also serves on that, as well as several members from the county, and E911 and the Red Cross, and a few other citizens are representatives. So we kind of meet on these issues. The county takes the lead on trying to put all this planning process together. And our responsibility at this point is to just ideally adopt this plan. And this plan is set until, I believe, 2019. And then for year 2020, we'll be required to update the plan. So there's probably some things that we haven't identified yet in this plan or that were missed through the process. It was a very long time just to get to this point. I think this planning started actually with when Bob Eichenberg, who's in the room, was the county planner, and Bob's been retired 4 years, roughly. We then, Bob handed it off midstream to Lori Burchett, who was the county planner after Bob. Lori submitted everything to the state. The state EMA needs to review these hazard mitigation plans to make sure that they're in accordance with the federal standards. It sat at the state in their office for over a year without us getting any feedback. And then Lori received some feedback saying, oh, well, our priorities have changed. And so you need to change about 30 or 40 pages worth of the documentation here and change some of your calculations. So Lori started that process, resubmitted it, then Lori moved, and then Emily Carnahan became our county planner. Emily started with the state, and then Emily left. So now we have a new county planner, Miranda Kreidler, who's trying to wrap this up and get these approved with us. And so the Hazard Mitigation Committee is trying to assist with that. So the planning process as far as getting from when we started this back in 2011 or 2012 to where we are today in 2015, there's been several hurdles that we've had to jump over just to finally get this 150-page document with appendix to you this evening. So I guess I would open it up if you have any questions. The only thing that they ask is that we, as communities, we do need to have these plans adopted prior to the end of 2015. So if you're thinking that you have to rush 3 readings or something prior to August recess, that is not the case. We just, in order for us to be eligible for mitigation funding during a disaster, we have to have this adopted by the end of this year. So,
okay.
Any questions?
Or? Yes. President Nestle.
So if I'm understanding right, the states looked at it, they need it adopted at the local level.
Right.
Okay.
The Athens County Commissioners have already adopted, so the unincorporated Athens County is protected under this. Nelsonville has also adopted, so the city of Nelsonville is secured. And I believe Miranda has met with, I want to say, Trimble and Bookdale. Okay. And they're in the process of adopting, and she's on the schedule to meet with Chansey and Albany. And Coolville, too, I think.
Okay. And just a couple of technical questions as I was looking through it. I realized historically the document was started in 11, so
right.
References to the county engineer's office on East State Street
right.
are still in here.
Right.
But that's kind of historic. That's where it was at
Correct.
The time that
right.
it was created, so that will stay
There's a few issues like that, and we
appendices.
actually double-checked with, we asked Miranda to double-check. Can we actually amend this document prior to in an easy pace? And we were directed from the state basically saying that's going to be very difficult to do. Okay. And so their recommendation was to adopt, and then any of those types of changes would be incorporated into the updated plan for 2019 or 2020. Okay.
Good.
And it has to, the process as he explained it, it says an amendment to the plan should be very well justified and usually is done to ensure a project is covered by one of the mitigation actions in the plan. This process is for the jurisdiction to forward the amendment to the county, who submits the amendment to the state EMA. The state hazard mitigation officer reviews the request, and if accepted, then the amendment is sent to FEMA for final decision. And then he comments, it should be known that FEMA rarely approves amendments. And I suppose it's just because they may see the amendment as being too benign to have people go through all that process or bureaucracy, I suppose. So.
Mayor Weil?
I just want to point out, as been long in the making. I've attended, my service safety director also attends when possible. We also have, usually at the table, we have the university, which is the #1 employer there and big footprint of the city. It's the best plan. There's lots of things we do more of, but every plan will go awry as soon as the natural hazard hits us, the event hits us. But we try doing our best to put all the different possibilities in. And again, this is something that will have to be reviewed, studied along the way. And again, I've been involved in it, but even then, it's been doing it since 2011 at least. But at the same time, we can expect something coming our way sooner or later. I mean, that's the nature of nature.
Also,
Sooner, according to the radar. So.
In the action, what I call the action plan, mitigation plan, and what have you, there are things like create a vulnerable population database, similar to the endeavors that are occurring right now to reach out to those with disabilities, and so those will all really flow into this. And a number of these things, when Bob and I prepared this years ago, some of this has been indeed accomplished. It's more just kind of maintaining it and updating these inventories. And you've got Everbridge now, in terms of an outreach via Nixle and all that. So.
And we've addressed critical facilities are addressed actually in the city in Title 25, our floodplain ordinance. We addressed that no critical facilities are new critical facilities can be located within our 20-year floodplain, which was we had that mapped by Jeff Maiden's engineering firm prior to Mr. Maiden becoming the county engineer. So we've already identified some of these from the previous planning of issues that we were being silent on that could really have a huge impact on us if we do have a major flood event or something of that nature.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good job. Next on the agenda is the Athens County 911 Emergency Communications Network Microwave Network Project. I believe this is it's going to be talking about a loan that is through the Local Government Innovation Fund, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct. To enhance the 911 communications using microwave. We're still using, in terms of towers, 8 towers throughout the county, and they're tied into 911 via copper twisted pair. And this would make for better continuity between the towers. Bob Eichenberg is here today, and he's going to present to us on this opportunity.
Actually, if it's okay with council, I'm going to have Dan Pfeiffer, who's the director of 911, lead off because I'm serving as a consultant to the county to help write the loan application. But this is the real brains behind the operation.
Thank you for having us here tonight. We're here to ask for your support in achieving it's a grant, but it's actually a loan through the Local Government Innovation Fund for the state of Ohio, so that we can improve the 911 radio system that goes around the county. As Mr. Patterson said, we have 8 towers that circle the county, and currently they are all connected with old copper wires, and some are even connected with radio links, but that's not the most efficient way, especially in the modern age. Our project would entail setting up a microwave link between all those towers back to our center, but also connected in with a statewide network. And one of the biggest things about this whole thing is that it then opens up a large pipeline for information around the county that could be accessed by local business and could make some economic improvements across the county, because now we have a large internet access, wireless internet access around the county. So 911 is only concerned with one little small part of it, but with that little small part, we're going to have a gigantic advantage around the county for attracting business and other things. And the good thing about it is, the only thing we need from the city of Athens is your support and your signature
all the money comes back out of my budget, not yours. So if you would want to expand into it later, you can do that, but just for the project at this point, we're just asking for the support from the local agencies so that we can apply for the grant.
I did have an opportunity, thanks to Paula earlier today, to talk to Chief Pyle, because I'm conducting some informal interviews of emergency communication providers to see what benefits there might be. And he pointed out two things to me. One being, right now all the cruisers use a cellular system to report data back when they do their daily and episode reports. And he said with this microwave system they could link in and not have to rely on the cellular pickup. And then he was also saying that security cameras could tie into this system too, and he would have the ability to put a security camera at any given moment in any given spot and not need to worry about, is there a fiber close by or is there an antenna close by? And so, I just thought that was something that might be of interest to people in terms of specific benefits. And the only other thing, just, it's kind of a more technical detail, but the Local Government Innovation Fund can provide up to $500,000 in a loan. And each collaborator is eligible, or makes the county eligible, for $100,000 of that. This network system we're talking about will cost, give or take, $400,000. That leaves $100,000 left over for the collaborators to use. We're not here to say you'll get exactly this much money, but it's a little extra incentive to head down the path to get on the MARC system or to buy some equipment that you might need to, more effectively be a partner. And so there were two documents. One's the resolution, and accompanying that is a memorandum of understanding. So we'd need both of those approved.
And count from the city. Member Pappy?
I just had a couple of questions. So when we're talking about microwaves, we're talking about towers.
Yes.
So have you come up with some of your sites? I assume that's part of your plan. And whenever we have that kind of conversation in Athens City, people don't necessarily want a tower in their backyard or whatever. So have some of those sites been identified?
We already have 8 communications towers that ring Athens County, and those are the towers that will be used.
So it would be the same towers?
Exactly, yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can kind of elaborate a little bit from what I have, that the towers, the one in Athens is the Peach Ridge Tower.
Correct.
Which is already there. The others are Nelsonville, Gloucester, Amesville, Rome Township, Coolville, Shade, and Albany. So this would really kind of, one of the things that it could do would be to provide Wi-Fi, like you were just saying, throughout the entire county and beyond.
It could if a private company wanted to come in and exploit what we have here, yes.
Right.
Yeah, the initial application gets 911 set up and any of the initial collaborators, but then, private providers in Telewave, as an example, could buy into the system and then utilize it for more access.
Great. Other questions? Mayor?
So there's no financial commitment from us, and this is for 911 abilities, essentially, right? And emergency.
Correct.
Would it enhance the reverse 911 abilities out there to get? I assume it goes both ways. If you need to tell somebody out there what's going on, you can, better than just what you have now. Because I think there was something about voice over IP capabilities possible, right?
Well, voice over IPs, it goes over the internet. So if we've set up this link around the county, any of the government agencies that have a voice over IP system, and you need to get to an outpost that doesn't have that capabilities, now we have that capability.
Okay.
For the average citizen, I don't know if they'd want to buy in.
No.
For that, but so it wouldn't be reverse 911 because that's over a phone, but it improves our whole communications back and forth with the radios for all the emergency services.
Okay. No new towers. That's the other thing.
No,
we're
no
using
new towers.
existing. Okay. So we're improving the abilities with just what we have.
Correct.
Another thing the chief had pointed out today, Bob, was the fact that right now we pay for wireless cards in the vehicles that hopefully can be eliminated. So there's a cost savings ultimately in the future.
Any other questions?
No. Good idea.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
First century stuff. How about that?
The next item on our agenda, I'm going to turn over to Member Butler. He's going to speak on some things representing AMAC.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Patterson. This evening we have a presentation from two members of the Athens Photographic Project. And I'd like to share that this discussion and the idea of this came out of the spirit of the essence of Athens and this idea of public art. So this evening, Nate Thompson and Josh Birnbaum will be presenting briefly with the hope of a collaboration with the city, specifically the parking garage and the brick facade across the street here on Washington Street as a possible canvas location. The Athens Photo Project, for background information, is a nonprofit 501c3. It was founded in 2000, so this is not something new, and has been working with our community ever since then. Specifically, and they can go into more information about this, but specifically working with the local citizens, bridging that gap between art and mental health and wellness, working with empowering people that have been stigmatized with mental health issues. So without further ado, I'll introduce them and get them up here, but I want to acknowledge one last thing. I feel that this is an exciting project and potential here, and I believe that they're jumping through all the right hoops at the right level, right pace. They contacted our city planner, and then the planner and I met with them, and we suggested and encouraged them to then go speak with the Municipal Arts Commission, which they then did promptly, and got the blessing of the Municipal Arts Commission, who then encouraged them to come here to speak with council and the mayor to keep us all abreast and in the loop of their intentions. So, gentlemen, please present at the podium, and if you could introduce yourselves again, or sign. Do they need to sign in? Beneficial, if you could sign in. You can sign in. Yeah. Okay. I also, while they're signing in, will acknowledge on air and to council, we passed out background information. I believe Josh's CV is in there as well, and some history regarding the Athens Photo Project, and then some specific data about this particular proposal. Thank you.
Thanks for the detailed introduction. So just a little bit more background on our program. We have been in Athens since 2000, providing photography classes as a component of mental health recovery. We partner with many organizations in our region, Hopewell Health Centers, 317 Board, Dairy Barn, to maintain consistent programming throughout the year. We've done that through photography classes as well as ongoing exhibitions. We have artwork that's at the Market on State. That's a rotating member-run art gallery in the hallway. And our signature program, though, is our classes that are currently held at the Dairy Barn Arts Center. Coming into August, we do run in the same academic calendar as OU. We'll be serving 50 community members per week in our program at introductory and advanced levels. And why we're here this evening is we would like to partner with the city to develop a curriculum for our advanced level photography classes, which will serve 20 community members. And what we would like to do is develop the curriculum to be a public art project, where Josh Birnbaum, as the instructor, will collaborate with the artists in our program, as well as with the city and any other potential stakeholders in this to create a public art piece that would be housed for a 10-year period at the parking garage, on the exterior of the parking garage. We realize we're still in the planning process, so we would really want to incorporate that planning throughout and follow all the guidelines that have been set up with mural projects or any other public art projects. But we're really excited to do something like this. What inspired me was meeting with Paul and learning more about the Essence of Athens plan. And I think our artists would also be very excited to engage in a process like this. The artists have completed one collaborative project as a group so far, and that was a collaborative project with Appalachian Behavioral Health Care, where for a 30-week period, we designed a curriculum around arts and healthcare as a topic, and the artists created an art lending library for the residents of Appalachian Behavioral Health Care, where residents now at the hospital can select from a body of nearly 80 works of art to incorporate and bring that artwork into their bedrooms, which previously didn't have anything like that. So we're all about collaboration. Josh can talk a little bit more in detail about what he has in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm Josh Birnbaum. I teach photography at a couple local institutions. I'll be leading the class this year and developing the curriculum around public art and collaboration. The idea behind it is to lead these artists, a lot of them whom are seasoned artists. They've been with APP for at least 5 years, and some of them have been with APP since the beginning, since 2000. So they've gone through a lot of what we've done and gone through different stages as artists. But the idea is to get them to do something new and kind of further take them along that step towards recovery, but also towards integrating themselves into the community and recognizing them and giving them pride as community artists. So we'll be covering the history of public art. We'll be bringing in OU artists. We'll be bringing in community artists to share. I'll be giving them guided photographic assignments. We might have some members of AMAC, possibly Kent and Paul, come in to share in that collaboration. We will be meeting with the city as necessary to get feedback and move the process along. And that will cover our 30 weeks. And we hope to have some kind of public project by May of next year. And the reason we chose the parking garage was because we found it to be both a physical and symbolic intersection of a lot of folks in Athens. It's the university, it's people at the city, it's visitors. Everyone parks there and everyone goes there. And there's this huge wall on the side of it that is not used, so we want to steal it. And we want to put art on it.
And our programming is in place to begin. It would be, I think, August 24th. So that the classes are all, the funding is in place for the classes. We would look to work collaboratively with the city over time to figure out how to pay for the art installation itself, the actual physical installation. But as far as the instruction and the classes, that's all in place and ready to begin at the end of August.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I'm going to pass out and provide you with just a few plan sheets from our parking garage repair, just to show you what will be occurring on that sidewalk. Based on what you had, the proposal states if the art install is unable to occur by May 6th, at least the design and implementation of the art.
Correct.
And I think we can work within this. I mean, we're opening bids at the end of this month. We have a pre-bid tomorrow. But this will show you some sidewalk repair and what they'll be doing on the front. The second page shows the storm repair, the storm drain. And it kind of curves down and goes down Washington. And in one of your pictures, I just wanted to point out the one picture down here is a High University property. So if there's a consideration for any use in that area, we'll want to work towards seeking their approval for that as well.
And that specific wall would be kind of a secondary location if there was some reason it couldn't work in the first image.
So this is primarily running along the north-facing walls, the north-facing
Yes.
brick facade that you see
On
as you
Washington
leave the
Street.
city building. You're looking right at it.
Yeah.
And we would collaborate with any professionals needed to execute the installation, knowing that we're photographers, and it would be very unique to introduce photography into a public art. That's not something that happens on a very regular basis. So we would be seeking collaboration where we're bringing our expertise as photographers, but whether it's a metal worker or if it's a sculpture artist, we would need to partner with some professional to help finalize a public art piece.
Thank you, Nate.
That's great.
Councilmember Kathy also had a question.
I just want to thank you. I work in a building where your art is hung on the walls. I work at Hopewell Health Center. So, and the amount of comments, everybody stops, even if they've been in the office many, many times. A lot of times, I've never noticed that picture. I know it's been hanging there a while, but, and the uniqueness and the eye for what these photography professionals make is really appreciate it. So I think, I'm glad you came to council. Great idea.
Yeah, and it's, I think as Josh mentioned, the artwork becomes visible, but also in the recovery process, the artists themselves are becoming visible and having new connections in the community, and that really establishes a very authentic sense of identity as community members. So we've seen amazing transformations happen with artists over the years, and happy to share those stories at another occasion. And the artists I think, are always willing to share their own stories too. So it'd be wonderful to be able to collaborate, work together.
Any questions or comments? Councilman?
I just have one comment. I look forward to seeing art on this blank canvas at some point down the road, and I would encourage collaboration with the Athens Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, because this has also been envisioned possibly as a great place to put something related to bicycles and multimodal transportation. So, if there's some synergy that's possible there, as Athens works to improve its infrastructure for folks to get around via their feet or their pedals, then that would be wonderful too.
Thank you. Mayor Weil?
Again, the process, I guess it's going through AMAC. Is that how it works? And you're in collaboration with AMAC, which is, they're in charge of kind of the vetting of art on public buildings. Council, of course, has control of what goes on a building in one sense. It's right at city property. And again, the other concern, of course, I have is we're trying to do some repairs on that. But it sounds like there won't be too much problem with that. I'm intrigued on how it will turn out. I mean, again, this is part of what we're looking at in terms of essence of Athens, as well as collaboration with all sectors of the population and citizenry. Sounds good.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I can address briefly, yes, they have presented this proposal to the Municipal Arts Commission and have the initial blessing of the Arts Commission. That's why they were here this evening, was then to move forward with adding this to the class curriculum as a focus. And then we won't be blindsided because they will be presenting with us along the way. That's my hope and expectation.
Sounds good.
That's my understanding. So if they gather our blessing, then they can proceed with their classwork. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this will be really interesting to see how this all unfolds. So, thank you, guys.
Sure will.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
What? You can do them. I don't need it. You can make enough copies.
Miscellaneous, is there anything under miscellaneous that I'm missing?
I know that one citizen's here, at least for a pretty cool update.
Pool update? Is that what I just heard?
I'm sorry, I walked away.
So the miscellaneous was?
Pool update. I
Pool
know that a
update.
citizen is here
Oh.
based on the possibility that we'd be discussing sort of next steps. And what we're requesting administratively, and actually we plan to do it up until the point where we need funding, but to go ahead and put out a full RFQ for a design engineer consultant. Now, we're sure that Branstad or Carroll will be one of those that will be submitting, but this is to kind of open it up, provide the information to date that we've received, and then start to go down the path in terms of the next steps, endeavors on the pool. It's my understanding there's a meeting tomorrow with the auditor to discuss the financing component, what the bond council will and will not support. So I know that I believe you're going, Jeff, and maybe not. No, Rich Campitelli is attending this meeting to kind of give us some financial steps moving forward in terms of the pool. So.
Sir.
Several people here from the south side. We were told that we'd be able to speak after Mr. Loney's presentation regarding Coates Run.
That's
You're next.
Next committee, plan and development.
Okay.
I just threw it a
Mr. Loney
miscellaneous.
just left, is the reason my concern, so.
That is not under the
I was
planner's
told it was
purview.
after Loney spoke.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I apologize, I gave him the wrong information, and you
Okay.
can beat the hell out of me when we leave later.
In terms of the pool, part of my concern, and we were at the presentation, what? About the
Yes.
essentially, I was kind of shocked by the amount of money we'd be losing, hemorrhaging in an indoor pool situation, as well as the total cost. Again, I know we're trying to rush to get the outdoor pool functioning as fast as possible. And the RFQ would probably reflect the idea of trying to put everything in if we can afford it. But again, my concern is that that's a lot of money for both indoor and outdoor, as well as the operations, which is a major component. So with that in mind, we need to look at the estimated certified revenue that we anticipate, how that would come in, and probably really look at the dollars. Sure, I know most of you went to the meeting. You saw the dollar amounts that were being thrown around, and it would pretty much pull all the money out that was there. And it's for pool, but as well as upgrades of other parks and other recreation parks, whether it's shelters or bathrooms or ADA accessible playgrounds. And I again, the disclaimer is I am not a swimmer of the pool. I do not have kids who would jump into the pool. So therefore, I am not the expert in pools, but I worry about the dollars.
Sure.
And it does sound like the advisory committee has worked as we work towards the passage of the levy. We do have some consulting information from Brandstetler, and that will be helpful to get the auditor information. So I think we can put all these things together and assure the community that we are moving forward. But with due deliberations about wanting to be good stewards of the money and be careful about it, incorporate as many things as we can into the pool and the park improvements. So
casting out a request for qualifications is prudent at this point.
Sure. Member Butler.
Thank you. I would add as well to having sat in and participated in the Recreation Advisory Board that, and I can't speak for all members obviously, but I would definitely like to assure council as well as the public that no one's hurrying quickly to make ill-advised decisions with the public dollar, that there's a lot of deliberation, discussion happening within the Recreation Advisory Board as well. And I know the mayor's office and Paula are aware of all the, and Paula's been present at a number of the meetings as well. So I think that's important for the public to know that this is, it's a big deal, and we're not moving not moving too quickly without listening to everyone and taking in a lot of information and being mindful of the public dollar and the potential challenges that come with two different pools.
Yep. Thank you, Member Butler. I would like to echo that, as well as the fact that, and the mayor brought this up a minute ago, is that the levy itself is multifaceted. It's
Correct.
Not just a pool. It is making a lot of improvements to all of our city parks and recreational facilities. It's not a one-shot pony.
Yeah, and I'll allow this airtime moment to acknowledge too that I have received feedback about the dilapidated bathrooms on the West State ball fields and just how scary that space may be sometimes for people trying to access it. I know there are a lot of porta-johns up in place, although porta-johns aren't always the friendliest place either.
Member Cochran.
I just wanted to express my quandary over, in a way, it seems like we've put the cart before the horse. Yes, we're all eager to have a new pool, but at the same time, we know that there are many other needs that this levy, the monies need to address, and we have not yet gotten any information about how much money needs to be allotted to this, that, and the other thing, what those things are. And I believe that we need that information before we can actually determine how much money we can afford to put into our pool. So while it's important that we move ahead as quickly as we can toward getting this important piece of infrastructure in our community, it's also important that we acknowledge and we determine the other needs that are out there to bring our parks up to date.
It's exactly what the council president asked for this today.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I think we're all concerned and wanting to work on this to further it.
Yes, please. Just state your name and your address.
Sure.
I'm Peter Hoffman Pinther. I live up in Columbia Avenue, 108 Columbia Avenue. I've been in town for, I don't know, since 1967. I'm one of the people concerned about the pool, but not the pool itself. What I would like to urge the council to do is take a real long view of this. The presentation that was given, the arguments I heard, there was a large segment of the population sort of left out, and that was the a little bit older group of citizens that could use a therapeutic pool during the winter. They could swim during the winter. It's just a summer pool. You're cutting them out, basically. Now, the university pool is there, but the university pool, for instance, they cannot go between 3 in the afternoon until 7 at night, because it's used for the master swimmers, the swimming team, etc. It's also closed very often for competitions. So I think it would be useful to have another pool as an addition to the community center we have. If I remember correctly, we could have had a community center with some basketball courts outside and track, everything outside, and not costing as much. But we went to the trouble to really build a very nice community center and to eventually convince the citizenry to raise the taxes for it. And I'd like to see that kind of action again, a real effort to inform the public. I'm not quite sure how informed they are. I know that I look at it, but I'm not sure others. So that's what I would like to urge the council to do. It may cost us a little bit of money, but if we look at down 20 years from now, it might be well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam President.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Planning and Development Committee, and co-chair Councilmember Reisner will be working us through our items tonight, the first of which is the Coates Run.
Thank you, Madam President. Let's get right into it. I think we all know that Coates Run floods frequently. It spills out onto Richland Avenue. It causes property damage and messes up the road and deposits logs and things and so on. And it's certainly not getting better on its own. And I wanted to bring this topic up before council. I know recently the city has been developing some plans, but I'd like to hear our citizenry and constituents on the south side. I live down there. I drive on Richland Avenue. I shop there. I go to Taco John's there. And I think we need to bring this out in the open and talk about it. So, well, what I'd like to do is open it up first to our audience here who would like to speak on the topic. You'll get 3 minutes up here, and then after we're finished with our audience members, I'll turn to the administration, hear what they have to say, and we'll move on from there. So, who's first? Sign the sheet and fire away.
I'm Kathleen Fuller, and I live at 469 Richland Avenue. I also own a piece of property, 460. I live at 467. I also own 469. I have been a resident for 30 years. I've always resigned on Richland Avenue. My home is above Richland Avenue, between Coates Run and the highway. In that time, I've seen a lot of development in the area, such as the continuation of 33 to Ravenswood, and the apartment projects, and everything gets dumped into Coates Run. And when you put concrete down, you lost your sponge, and it's going to run into the creek. Also, people use the creek for yard waste and things like that, and that helps dam it up also. So I know that when the highway came through, we have a little drainage stream. Nothing, they added more concrete, they extended it, and just put it all down that little drainage stream, and we've just watched it erode and erode away. And then the same with the run, because the drainage stream then connects to the run. And it's just going to continue to erode away until something's done.
Questions?
Questions?
Would you say in your experience, your 30 years there, property owner, it's gotten worse?
Oh, it's gotten tremendously worse, especially after the highway project went through.
And that was in the,
I don't know when that was, when they continued.
my memory doesn't work
When
either.
they made it a Super 2 or whatever they called it, yeah, on down. When that went through, because further down, what used to be the Y, all that became concrete and asphalt. And then when the apartments went in, I mean, every time it rained, you were bulldozing mud out of Richland Avenue. I don't know how many people remember this. So yes, it has the erosion. I know when we moved to Athens, the drainage stream that goes from the highway into Coates Run, it was only maybe 4 inches. Now it's probably 2 feet deep. And the same with the creek. When the Coates Run itself is now really, really deep and really, really wide. And something needs to be done. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
I'm Larry Lucas. We own Florinmore, which is around the corner on Pomeroy Road, number 7 Pomeroy Road. And we've been there going on 39 years. And like 2 years ago, we got flooded and lost a lot of inventory. It got up in our warehouses, and we lost several $1,000s worth of material for the flood. And we keep everything up on pallets just for that reason. And here, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had that Richland Avenue flooded again. And it got us again, and it got us pretty bad. And a lot of us, we had Rick Mayer called us and said, it was Saturday afternoon, he said, you better come in to your store. He said, there's a wall of water up against your buildings. And anyway, we came in and opened up the back room where our warehouse is, and it was coated with mud, the floor was. And then next door, we own a rental property next door to us, and we have ceramic tile on that floor, and it had like a 1/2 inch mud all over the whole floor and got up into the hot water heater and the furnace. And I don't know where all the mud came from this time, but it was really bad. So we lost more inventory, plus we had all that mess to clean up. So getting a little paranoid every time it rains. We wonder what's going to happen. So I don't know what's causing it, but I know Coventry Lane, when it rains real hard, I've been out there, and it's just like a river coming across the highway right at our store, too. So, and the city put in cut a thing in the curb, which is about a 2x2, but it hasn't taken care of the problem there because leaves and pine cones come down and fill that up and doesn't do much good. So I think that's part of it, plus the stream in behind the store. It backs up at the bridge there because Richland Avenue floods, so everything comes back our way. So, we've been there going on 39 years, and this is twice and just recently, so something's going on. So.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Larry, can I
Yes.
ask one question? So is that a drainage stream or a storm? What would you say
It's a
behind your
tributary.
business?
Behind the business?
You said that's filling up.
You have a stream behind your business.
Well, that's the same one.
It's the
runs
same
down
one,
Wilson
okay.
Avenue, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But then a lot of
visualizing
water is
that.
coming down Coventry Lane right at us, coming across the road.
Right.
Looks like a river coming across there
Right.
too. So between the two of them.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're
Yeah.
right in the middle.
And we even had, 2 years ago, we had a big pod behind the store full of carpet and padding and stuff like that. And then actually it's 40 foot long, and it's like a semi truck, but it sits on the ground. And they picked it up and put it in the stream. They carried it about 40 feet and put it in the stream. I had to get a record to come pull it out. So it's a real problem up there.
Yeah. Steve?
So you're getting it from, it's coming in from Coventry, but it's also,
Coventry Lane
it's also
plus
coming down
behind.
Old 33
Yeah.
down, because there's a,
It seems like there's a bridge right below the store there, and that's where it seems to be backing up too. I think the stream needs to be cleaned out for one thing, because it's got a lot of debris in it. And I think it just backs up there, especially when Richland Avenue, backs up, it backs up on the us.
Steve, if I could add something, since the new apartments.
You want to come up and talk?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to take my time.
It's our time.
Since the new apartments are there by the carry-out.
Come up to the microphone. so
I'm
people-
sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim Fuller. Because of all the drainage coming off those apartments, it backs up the water. That's what's happening. It's not, it just backs it up. It's like a natural dam. And so it's going all the way back to Larry Lucas's property, and you'll hear more later. Larry, you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, we'll go next. And I'll finish up.
It's good to be organized.
Okay. My name is Mike Knoll. I own 507 Richland Avenue, 518 Richland Avenue, 519 Richland Avenue, and used to own 509 Richland Avenue, where Oak Hill Bank is. Then, been at that location for almost 30 years, quite a while. I used to play on Richland Avenue when you could play ball down the middle of Richland Avenue at night and not get run over by cars when I was a teenager. So I kind of know that area pretty well. We've seen the majority of the issue occur after the highway rerouting and up over. Used to be when you went up the hill, the next valley over drained the other direction towards Albany. When they changed that, all the water rerouted towards Coach Run at that point. And so what's happened is the bridge right at Janie McAllister's property, in front of that, I think there's, what else is there? I can't remember the other businesses there. That bridge doesn't let the water through, so it backs it up. And then if there's logs occurring at that location, then it goes onto Richland Avenue. The closest drain was down by the Chinese restaurant, a very small one. We added another one when we did the Athens Sun Fund, because we discovered that there was a pipe there, and we discovered also that the drained actually across our parking lot into Coach Run. And so we tried to eliminate a little bit of it, but what happens for the most part is there's two conditions that occur that floods Richland Avenue. That's at the bridge just below BP, and then the second location is right at Cheney McAllister's property. He has a stream that comes in behind his building, and there is a small culvert that with a heavy rain clogs up with leaves from the hillside and stuff. It clogs up and dumps over. I've had my staff at the car wash for the last couple of years, when they're there, go out and clean it out to try to keep the water from running down at that location then. So I think there's several elements need to occur with it. One would be to see if we can get the state to put in some storage bladders on the highways so that we can slow the runoff down. We do that now with commercial properties. It's one of the requirements now if you do new developments in the city of Athens with the new flood ordinance, is that you have to control your water at a slower rate so we don't get the flash flooding occurred. So it'd be good to get a study done on that highway there to see if we can reduce it at that point then. And then secondly, to see if we can open up some of the culvert areas a little bit more. It's only going to increase the volume when you get further down by the apartment complexes, but so it's probably only going to transfer the flooding to further down. The sediment is occurring right at the bridge from, what's the name of the apartment complex up on the hill?
Summit.
Summit. Yeah, Summit. And so that's filled in, and so that's going to become a constant removal of that material over the years, but that's always been there. Some of the old timers will talk about in a flash flood being picked up and their car moved into McDonald's parking lot, and so that's existed for probably about 40 years and that. So it's kind of just transferred itself, but I think if we can reduce the water runoffs and put some ways of slowing it down, and the biggest real estate, of course, is the state's highway, and see if they can help us with that, that would be helpful. We did get them to put in some riprap to slow the drainage off. I don't know if it did any good. It has done some good, but those I think could also increase it over time. But it definitely is going to need some engineering to see if we can control it then at that point. And it's a good project for me because every flood I have college students, football players cleaning my parking lot, and so they're picking up cash. It's just draining out of my pocket a little bit. It takes about 2 days to get the mud out of the parking lot then. Wow. So.
Thank you.
Jim?
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry about that.
Jim Fuller, 467 Richland Avenue, and 469 Richland Avenue. Former city councilor from the 2nd Ward, former chair of the Housing Board of Appeals, former chair of the Community Relations Committee. Back in the 80s. Had this problem occurred so frequently, as we're seeing now back in the 80s, I would have been a more vocal voice. I want you to imagine this for a second, standing on your property next to a bridge, which you're responsible for, and watching not only cinder blocks tumble down, but toolboxes off the back of trucks come rushing down. Picnic tables come rushing down and busting into your bridge, which has an exposed gas line underneath it that the Columbia Gas won't do anything about, and the city won't give us any response of what they can do about it. Okay, this has happened time and time again. We first moved in 1984. That house was nothing but abandoned. We've rehabbed that house. We bought the United Appeal building. We were trying to do our part in making the south side a better place to live. But when I can touch the bottom of my bridge in 1984, and I haven't shrunk that much, and now it's 4 feet above my hand reach, that tells me there's erosion. The rail that Kathleen talked to you about that comes off the highway, I could cut that with a lawnmower back in 1986. So this is a problem that has been going on and on and on, and we've been neglected. And believe me, I've talked to Jeff, I've talked to Steve, I've talked to the mayor, I've talked to everybody about this. Not only this administration, past administrations. And it goes unchecked. We've had people on up the valley, on up the creek, actually take cinder block walls and push them into Coates Run. I've called the city nothing to be done. This is before Mayor Wells' administration. So it's gone on and on and on, and we're getting sick and tired of it. You know, I'm spending $5,000 right now because the abutment under my bridge has been eaten out, and it's about to collapse. If I had a fire up at 467, how are they going to get across there? You know? I mean, there's a responsibility here. We are all taxpayers in this community. And we sat here, Mr. Logie said it's a nice night to talk about hazards. Well, we've been talking about this for 30 years at least. And, you know, it's time to do something about it. We were told when the project was going to go on the south side on the road, Coach Run was going to be cleaned out. You know, I had to call 6 years ago when a water meter right across from the Canterbury stoplight that was there at that point was being eroded away. It's about to fall into the creek. Okay? So you all need to do something. You know, it's just time to do it. I'm tired of paying extra taxes, the way I see it, to take care of problems that I didn't create. Most certainly the state of Ohio created a huge problem. Most certainly we allowed the apartment buildings to be built with all the runoff and all the concrete and blacktop to come down to that section on that end of town by the OU, and that's created a problem. It's been bad planning. It's been negligent planning. Okay, and so I'd ask for you to take this in consideration and do something to help the people on the south side, because we feel a little screwed lately, to be honest with you. Okay? So thank you for your time, and next time you have opportunity for citizens to speak, I'd suggest you the first part of the program instead of making us wait for an hour. So instead of being mildly irritated, we're really irritated. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Anyone have any questions?
All the eyes turn this way.
Is there anyone else in the audience that care to speak? Okay, you've had your chance. Now I'll turn to the administration. Replies?
Just to clarify, the significant rain event that occurred 3 weeks ago or what have you, when you had 2.5 inches of rain within that period of time, was a collision of all things that went wrong, including the fact that the storm drains were not tied in yet under the project, so you had orange barrels floating down Richland Avenue, not negating the impacts that you've had. And we did do some repair work, as you know, up there on Pomeroy Road in terms of some storm improvements. Not that we're done. So our city engineer, all at the same time within the last week, has received back a report. For the Richland Avenue project, we had to do a flood mitigation effort related to that, because for some reason we're still held to the standard of any increase in the flood rise on Richland Avenue ever since 1967. You know, we go to do improvements and they say you'll still have to do another project. So incorporated here, and we can provide this to you, is the Coates Run hydraulic study plan with mapping, but it only goes to Canterbury. What I'm hearing from you tonight, and Andy already indicated, he wants to do a larger project that goes all the way to the Y. Some first stabs at costs up to $400,000, you know, just even for that. We're kind of looking at 2017, I believe, in order to start stockpiling the money from Storm and have the funding available for this. But so we're not ignoring it, I guess we're saying that he wants to proceed to have channelization work done on Coates Run. It does require the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer approval. And I know in the past when we did a clean out of the channel in Coates Run, it took quite a bit to convince the Army Corps of Engineers to authorize this. But we'll have the engineering, the science behind this when we present it to them for approval.
So, Paul, instead of keep bugging you with an email, where do I go the next time there's a 20-foot tree lodged between my gas line and my bridge?
Well, no, you can keep bugging me. I'm just saying that you're talking.
And 3 weeks ago was not, I mean.
Right, that was an anomaly, you know, that all occurred at that time. So we also have to get approval from the high EPA.
Yeah.
So we can provide all of this information to council. We can provide it to the citizens. We were never going to be able to actually get in there and do this restoration plan until 2016, because it has to be outside of the work that we're doing now. But we can fund it, we can do it. Andy likes to say if he had enough money, he could do just about anything. So.
Again, we do have set aside money, as you know, from the utilities for stormwater management. So we're pulling that money together. That was instituted, 4 years ago, I think it was, the stormwater
It's
fee?
not been that long.
Has been,
3?
I don't know. The idea is citywide, we're supposed to be putting a stormwater mitigation plan together, following where we put our storm sewers. This, of course, Coates Run is not a storm sewer. It is essentially a creek, as you know. You know more than I do about it. I know when in the Able administration, he did question why they were putting large culverts in when they were doing the Super 2 down to Pomeroy, the 33. You know, there has been development there. They realized some on Coates Run has had to put retention ponds in. Courtyard had to do theirs. Whether they're adequate or not is always a question, depending on the rain events. Further upstream where you are, you know, we just had a discussion about hazard mitigation. Some of it's flood prone, some of it's slip prone. Essentially, that whole area is pretty much a little bit of both. I remember anecdotally the drive-through, the car wash that's off of right next to Mike Knowles has had at least 2 slips in the time I've been sitting in city council. I think ODOT paid for the first one, and we had to buy the second one. So we are aware of the problems that are there. Right now we're sinking $4 million into this portion, the front portion of Richland, which is floodplain. It goes floodplain all the way up to I think Coventry at this point. That is technically always going to be a floodplain, no matter what you do with it. How to mitigate it or make it so it doesn't erode things, there are retention ponds. I never thought of bladders. That's an interesting idea. I know we've been discussing this off and on for years, how to address it. Obviously, ODOT doesn't think it's a problem. Obviously, we'd have to take on mitigation. The conversation in the past one was actually trying to plant trees on those bare hillsides to retain the water a little bit better on that Super 2. But again, we're playing with somebody else's property. We're playing with Army Corps of Engineers that has to deal with it, and as well as Ohio EPA of what the impacts will be. On the other side of it, of course, most coats run to channelize, which I think this report addresses to a certain extent, $200,000 worth of it. That's other people's property as well. So you're talking about setting up a series of easements and permissions as well as oversight of at least 2 government agencies besides ourselves. So we're aware of it. I can't predict, I can't promise I'll do it in the next 5 months, but it's on the radar at this point. That's the best I can do. And again, 2017 at the earliest if we can get that rolling. And I go down there regularly to check the water levels. I know, I talked to Purple Chopsticks, they got flooded. I wasn't aware Florimore got hit that hard.
By the way, when you brought up Purple Chopsticks, I spoke with Ed this afternoon, who could not be here.
Mm-hmm.
He just got turned down for his insurance claim as an act of God. But we did too. Yeah.
From that significant rain event, yes. I did not know how that was going to go.
Okay.
I don't think God put it in the highway.
So I have that question
Yeah,
because
question.
Our citizens here spoke a lot about ODOT, and you didn't mention ODOT. You mentioned Army Corps and you mentioned EPA, but you did not mention ODOT.
I will share with you that Andy does indeed, he's been in touch with ODOT. He would like to do this hydro seeding. You've seen it, you saw it on the bypass where they shoot out and hydro seed. So that reforesting the area around the Y and where they put it in their Super 2 or whatever they call it down to Darwin. What is it called? Super 2. But he feels, and I maybe someone can educate me, that ship has sailed in terms of holding ODOT to the fire for that endeavor. It's our understanding in the past there may have been some litigation or maybe threatened litigation, and ODOT has indicated that they're not responsible.
I get correspondence if you want to pull it out.
I don't know that. I mean, it's been the number of years that it has been. I think that perhaps their generosity may be in allowing us to reseed those right-of-way areas.
I know we had a volunteer organization, 5-6 years ago to try to.
But it wasn't enough.
It wasn't
Andy
enough.
said
We
it
need
was.
something much more robust. I think you were involved in it, right?
Yep.
Well, but I'm wondering in a specific situation, like the Fullers have mentioned regarding the drainage, that it continues. I mean, it's off the highway. I mean, is that an ongoing issue that could be addressed with ODOT?
I can ask again. I have not in my time.
I
up
assume
here,
they have
so.
pictures and all kinds of things to show for an exhibit.
I suspect we'd have to conduct some kind of engineering study for that portion of Coates Run, if it's even still called Coates Run at that portion. But, again, what you're doing is you have battling engineer studies to prove that it's a problem. And I'm sure they have some data. We're still backtracking on this stuff because we have, I need to look at the project numbers for the slips that occurred. I know we spent money on that. I know Mayor Abel did approach them and saying, the culverts up there are bigger than Coates Run down here. And why is that? And they just said it's all good. And again, I'm just, this is me when I was, probably even before I was on council, probably in the audience. I just remember this being an issue.
So I guess the thing that I'm also hearing is it does sound like there is a more of a difficult situation these days farther up.
Well, we're saying that, the ODOT down by the Y in that situation does seem to be a little bit different than it. But we still think we do need to do this project and do the channelization project in order to mitigate some of the existing flash flooding that's occurring on Richland Avenue.
Madam President, you have a question?
Question about the apartment complexes, and at the time that the designs went in, there were, I'm assuming, the retention ponds.
Retention ponds, yeah. I think
placed in, and has there been recent work to look at that to make sure that those are adequately keeping the water off Richland?
That's a good question. I think if I remember correctly, the Summit's retention ponds are much more robust than the courtyards. But in both cases, I think they're supposed to be able to catch a certain amount. You know, that's the lower part of Coast Run. So what will happen there is that if they do overflow, it will back up. But again, it's all floodplain once you get down to the street level, unfortunately. So it will flood. I don't know what the insurance policies are for FEMA in terms of that. I assume many people have to buy flood insurance down in the hollow there. I don't.
They say you can't, they won't sell it.
They won't sell it to you at all. Did you ever have it?
We're trying.
Other questions for council?
No doubt it is.
Trying to keep things moving.
Well, I'd like to be able to provide this preliminary, study to the citizens and to all of council, so that they have that and they can see that we're actually working towards endeavors to remedy.
I think I received a copy this afternoon, an email and a letter from the engineer that accompanied it. I have to admit that it's, 75 pages long?
Not that long, is it?
It should have been. Mine isn't.
The whole document?
Are you sure you don't mean the natural hazard
Yeah,
mitigation?
This is 26 pages.
26 pages.
And we'll try back, again, I know to do Summit on Coast Run, they had to do some hydrology work there to do that bridge there, to prove that it wasn't backing up anything.
Yeah.
That was required for that improvement.
Well, I did a quick calculation over the weekend, and I figured that Coates Run drains approximately 10 square miles. And if you dump 1 inch of water on 10 square miles, you get 45,000 cubic feet of water. Now, that's assuming that it all runs off, of course. That never happens, but there's always some absorption. But I don't see any way in the world that little creek could hold 45,000 cubic feet. That's just 1 inch. You have 2.5 inches, well, then it's over 100,000 cubic feet. And that's why things like a tractor trailer pod gets picked up and moved around, because against a force like that, there's nothing's going to stand against it. So, it's an issue. It's a problem. And, I like what the engineer was talking about in his email, but unfortunately, like he says, that that project that you have in your hand only covers about half the distance, about 2,200 feet, and that just goes up to Canterbury. Well, from Canterbury up to the Y is probably another 2,000 feet, 1,800, something like that. So that's, you're doubling the scope of the project there.
That's money. That's money. We've been trying to work on Richland over time. It took it took an extra year just to get everything pulled together. We put out a bid, and that's only that's a portion of Richland. The next section is going to have to be looked at eventually as well.
And the other thing about the Coates Run is, as small as it is a habitat. It is regulated by the EPA.
Yeah.
There is wildlife in there. There's salamanders and snakes and copperheads and fish. So you're going to get into issues like that. We can sort of, it's a salamander. What's that compared to everything else? Well, there are people who do care about it, and so you're going to have to deal. This is a community we'll have to deal with it.
If you go down and look at the bottom of the Oxbow Bridge, the salamanders on the wall is one of the species that got eradicated way back in rechannelization of the river. So people really do care about that.
Councilman Butler? Yeah.
Thank you. I want to express, thank you. I want to express my thanks to the community members that had the courage to come up and speak with us tonight, too, because it is an issue that affects all of us and has an impact. And maybe the administration can help brainstorm, too, about the gas line issue near the bridge there. And I'm not pointing blame or saying, but I think that an exposed gas line sounds like it could be a concern, obviously, if there's things coming at it. So if we can help brainstorm on...
Again, I requested Columbia Gas to carry it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson.
I just want to this is also something that came from the city engineer, and that is that we do have the stormwater fund. So there are funding mechanisms in place to try to work towards solving this problem. But again, as Service Safety Director was saying, that it could be a year or two for us to build up the funds in that, because it's currently drawing in $140,000 annually, and there are other projects. However, this is important. I get it. I live up there as well. I see it. So I understand the pain that you're hearing, and the frustration, the anger. So I think that there are funding streams. There's also street that can be used. The street fund can be applied to this as well. In looking at what Andy Stone has put forward, it almost sounds like to go all the way up to the Y would be an additional $50,000 to clear out Coates Run from there on up, to at least work to solve some problems up there with this potential $400,000 project with 3 bridges and all the other elements to help try to mitigate this problem. But it's serious.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question.
One last question.
There's been some sewer backup on the houses up there. Does that have anything to do with that?
Can you repeat the question, Jeff, because he's not up at the microphone, so they won't pick up.
The question is, there's been some sewage backup in some of the homes,
Right.
and he's wanting to know, is this related to?
I don't believe so. This is a separate issue that comes down off of Pomeroy Road. Seems to me just sometime in the last 9 months there was a sewer break and we had to reroute for a period of time. What do you call it when you do that? I can't remember. Anyway, we opted together like we did over Richland Avenue, or the bridge over the Hocking. So just please report those as those occur. You can address them.
And one of the issues that has been brought up by the city engineer is that there is a lot of infiltration and infusion from the old piping there, which is kind of counterintuitive. I always thought that was the newer portion of the city, but he's in the 7 years I've been here, he talks about the I&I, is what he calls it, of the south side is a problem. When you get a storm, you have a bump up of water coming to our wastewater treatment plant as a result. His hope is that if he can find a couple $1 million to do it, he can get it all fixed. Again, the solutions are usually multi-million-dollar pieces of engineering.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. You can stick around for the rest of the show. I have one item under miscellaneous. Issue 1.
Issue 1, yes. This is where we apply for about District 18, which is our section of the state. Usually it's about $400,000 towards a project or so. Let's see, the last one was, what was the 400,000 for?
Oh, we put it in Richland Avenue, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, probably. Essentially, it's an application, it's scoring that goes through. Buckeye Hills represents District 18 for this Public Works initiative. Sure, Mike can tell you all about it. We've run on some other ends of the table in terms of who gets priority.
I could be wrong. It's my understanding that Jessica had mentioned OPWC for the Northwest Bikeway Spur. We'll find out.
Yeah, so we're putting an application together. It depends on but we need authorization to do it. It's usually, as I say, the target dollar amount is usually $400,000. We usually put it towards, we've done it towards, I think, Lancaster, this Lancaster Columbus Road improvements there, West Union. We use it gets leveraged with other funds and helps out, but it's the deadline for that is September 4th. Okay. So, and then the process starts there. The scoring has to occur. So we're trying to put a packet together and target something that will get some numbers on it and get some money for.
So we need legislation for next week.
For authorization,
because
yes.
We will have an August recess. So.
Be nice to get it all done, yes.
And so we will likely have some special sessions.
And it sounds like it, doesn't it?
To get the readings through so that it is authorized. It's certainly some money that we want
Right.
to apply for.
Well, it has to be done, so let's do it.
Yeah. We'll schedule, if need be, schedule some special sessions. We have, one more for next week is a regular session. So do you want to, pick a time when you want to do that and who's here for a quorum?
Any other comments on this issue? Mr. Canterbury?
On the issue one, they've changed the point system on that, right?
They change it so
Where we used to get, and I was an advocate for our permissive tax, just because of what we would gain an extra $1 million almost every year. It was guaranteed. Now we can't do that. And I don't know if this is the proper place to build it. I think maybe it's time that we look at and start requesting that instead of the city only getting 30%, is that we look and say, well, hey, Mr. Commissioners, we need to now look at, since we don't get the extra points and we don't get the extra money in, is that let's change the mechanism of the permissive tax so that the city gets that full 100% instead of 30%. And that may be something to look at.
Conversation with the commissioners.
Every little bit of money that will help, well, that helps the city now. And again, I was an advocate for it, and I still am. But it's not doing what it used to be doing for us.
They took the scoring off of that to help the townships that can't actually levy taxes, I believe. And again, it goes back and forth. Every year they tweak the scoring to where it goes for, mostly, again, emphasizes bridges and culverts and roads and puts the water projects on the back burner, is unfortunate. So, but they wanted to spread it out a little bit more. And they tweak it every year a little bit, but there's not going to be any major changes in the integrated committee.
In our county, that's what helped us even with the townships, is because they was able to utilize, because we had all three taxes on there. So it helped them. So every entity in the county benefited from it. So the villages, everybody did.
But
now they don't.
Yeah, but the other counties do not have the same structure, and that's.
But they should have did what we did.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, there's different philosophies in different counties of how to tax and whether they're even the wisdom of taxes.
Well said, well spoken. Any other comments? Okay, so that's something on our to-do list for next week.
Most definitely.
And that's all I have under miscellaneous for planning and development.
All right, then we'll move on to finance and personnel with council person Jeff Reisner as chair.
It's my night in the hot seat, isn't it? First item, ASME Local 2403 agreement. I believe the administration has come to terms with the union, our local ASME, and we are anxious to hear. I understand that we settled on a 7.5% over 3-year pay raise. Correct me if I think it's 3% the first year, 2.5% the second, 2% the third. The cost of insurance stays the same. They have to pay a 35%
fixed cost.
Fixed cost. And the FMLA language, any significant changes there? I don't recall anything major.
Just cleaning up the language.
Okay.
The way I understand it is just so it fits the HR director,
right,
as well as some of the things that concern the auditor in terms of how there are ambiguities in the language.
Okay. And I think the contract is structured so if some other changes in the language occurs between now and then, that it would just automatically correct itself. Is that what I understand?
It's to comply with like the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, so
Okay.
that language is in there in case there is a change. We all have to come, and we're putting it in all the contracts because it's
Right.
federal law.
Right, right.
Or get fined. Or get fined.
Or get fined, yes.
Well, I think it's really good that the ASME union here is moving in line now, I think, with our other unions that we have to negotiate, so we're all sort of getting level on the same playing field. So.
They appreciate that as well. This is the first year, as I stated it, in my time up here, the first contract negotiation where the service workers will receive the same compensation in terms of annual wage increases as police and fire.
I think that's great.
And these are mature contracts, so there won't be a lot of, major shifts.
Right.
And if we do it right, we'll get this done in time before the old one sunsets.
Yes, that is one thing I was asking. It might be up tonight. Is it up tonight, Timothy? Because the
It
current
is.
contract expires in October, or August.
August, okay, so we're sort of under a deadline for that, too. Special session.
Or suspend rules, your choice.
Suspend tonight.
Suspend tonight.
You've got the numbers.
We could, yes, we could suspend tonight.
And I know some of the.
I hope everyone agrees with that.
What?
Nothing, just muttering. Anyone else have any comments on this? Okay, so we'll take care of it tonight under special session. Next time I have Budget Commission Annual Resolution. I'll have to confess, I'm still trying to get my head around that one, even though our President of Council has sent me all kinds of wonderful emails and things about it. Would you care to explain it, Madam President?
I can look through my old notes and explain, yes. The Athens County Budget Commission works through their rates, and so they work through them in the late spring. And then they will be taking this, the county will, they send the abstracts to the Ohio Department of Taxation. And so this resolution accepting the amounts is basically City Council passing a resolution saying we acknowledge what the Budget Commission has set as the rates for the coming year 2016. And if I'm remembering the document correctly, we are at the same rates, I believe, that we were before, the 2.6 for Athens Township, the 2.4 for Canaan Township.
That's correct.
And then this will, I'm remembering looking at the document correctly also, that will yield approximately $862,000 in revenue for our coming year in 2016. So what we're needing to do is acknowledge that that the rate has been set by the county.
No, they're saying, yes, we want the money, thank you. We agree. And it's pretty much for the footprint of the, real estate tax for us. We're both in townships, Athens and Canaan Township. This does not have to be suspended, if I understand, because when does it due? It's October, is it?
It's October.
Yes, but the idea is to get it started.
Right.
So we don't
So
forget.
it's a 3-reading resolution.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any comments? Anything else on that? And I had one thing under miscellaneous. This was handed to me by the mayor before the beginning council. Has to do with our human resources and same-sex marriage.
Yes. You want me to address that?
Might as well. Yeah.
Okay. It's nothing that has to be acted on immediately, but since the Supreme Court ruling, of course, we have domestic partnership registration as well as language put into for benefits. Probably that will have to be altered over time and how we address that because of the with same-sex marriage, it's no longer just domestic relations; it would be marriages as well. So the only reason I brought this up is that there will be a language change that's going on. I wanted to let you guys know about it, that we should be working on it. We will be working at it as it shakes out. And this is, of course, you'll be taken off for August, so the idea is to get that word in. Nothing more than that. It's nothing that has to be acted on, just awareness of it.
Okay.
So it's a policy.
Policy changes, yes,
now,
coming down the road.
Well, this require. I'm thinking, with this decision by the Supreme Court, it pretty much makes moot domestic partnerships, doesn't it? Is there any? Well, and that's an ordinance.
Doesn't really.
They may not be married.
Yeah, they still may choose not to be married. I mean, there'll be domestic partners that are not registered, registered as a domestic partnership that have not gone through the court.
We have domestic partnerships now that are male, female. So some years back you approved that in order to cover.
We did.
Sure.
So, but the idea is we're looking down the road, so there will have to be some language changes, and that will require some input. We'll see. I just got this today myself.
Okay.
That the human HR director said, this should be coming up sooner than later. So,
Okay.
Okay. And that's all it really is about.
Any comments on this? Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
We'll move on to Transportation Committee. Councilmember Pappy is chair.
I think so too.
Thank you. First on our agenda tonight is Halloween. I know it's at the end of October, but we have many ordinances that go through for Halloween. Couple things that may be different from last year is when we talk about Halloween, it's not just the actual party, the street party, but we have the trick-or-treat ordinances and all these other things. And so one, we need to talk about the parking garage because we've been not doing the free parking for events. So we need to discuss whether we've in the past done free parking for trick-or-treat. And with the funding that's needed for the improvements at the parking garage, my statement on this, but I think we need to open it up, is that we probably need to be consistent with events on who we give or don't give free parking to. So I would just say that. So we probably wouldn't want to do an ordinance related to that for the trick-or-treat. So we need to just kind of discuss that specific one.
You're talking about the Yuba trick-or-treat? I was
Yes.
kind of surprised to see that it's occurring after Halloween. I don't know if the Uptown Business Association chose that date as opposed to the Monday before Halloween. All that aside, we can also go back to the chamber and ask about sponsorship. And the city of Athens could be part of that.
Part of a sponsorship?
Yeah, to offset what we would lose in terms of revenue for that event. On Halloween, meaning Big People Halloween,
Big People Halloween, we charge, yeah. There's no issue for that.
We actually rent out the
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I applaud us in trying to communicate about the parking garage and offsetting some of the costs, because we're not allowing traffic during the time that the children will be, so that means you can't park. There's a lot less parking options available uptown then, if I'm correct. And because we're making it a safe space for the children and their families to be walking. So we would be limiting parking already because of that. So
that's how it would happen. It grew. The first year they did that, maybe even the second year, we didn't close the streets.
We didn't close the streets, so you had cars parked, you had people running in and out between the cars and on the sidewalks. And as it grew, you ran out of room on the sidewalks, just like Big Kids Halloween.
So we lost revenue on the street, and we lose revenue in the parking garage.
It's well,
I would say yes.
But my argument would be the safety factor, and that we want to make sure that the event is safe, especially with little children.
I don't think we can do parking back on the street. We have to have the parking off the street one way or another. So the question really is, do we charge or not charge for the garage? So that's.
And the mayor's asked me to get some numbers to run what would be a 4-hour time period of what the loss would be if every single meter was pumped in there for that period of time. So.
Realize we've had to increase the rates because we have to basically, pay off a debt in 15 years.
Right.
We've had nonprofits come to us and say, can you give us a cut? But it still comes down to we need to maintain it, and we don't have the money.
Right.
So policy-wise, and that's the difference between somebody saying, I want a long-term reduction in rate versus a short period. So we want to probably play with those numbers and see what it looks like for, as I said, 4 hours. Assume full capacity for 4 hours. What does that cost?
Right.
I mean, this is no different than you had that discussion about special events permit. This is a case where that would be part of that factor if you really want to go that route. I have a hard time saying how to do that, because when you talk about trying to get a number for somebody closing a street, the variables of how many barricades you need. When do the barricades go up? If you do it at 6 o'clock in the morning and you have somebody doing overtime to be there, or that's a different animal than somebody trying to do it at 5, and then who takes it down at a certain point. And this has to do with bagging the meters, clearing the streets, actually having to tow the cars if need be, which is, doesn't cost as much, but still costs, logistics and somebody else, or probably the person who owns the car. So there are a lot of there are a lot of variables in that. We'll look and get you a number of what it would
So
cost.
I would say for tonight's purposes, we're talking about the big person's Halloween.
Yeah.
I think the trick-or-treating one could come a little bit later in terms of the ordinance. But as for the Halloween, we know that the date is Saturday,
31st.
October 31st. The Clean and Safe Committee has met Paula several times, I understand, or you've had meetings to discuss all this. So everybody's on board. There's no confusion. So that it would be our standard ordinances of when we close the streets, at what time, and
Noise.
noise.
What is it, vending?
Now, what about glass?
Glass-free.
What about glass? Do we still need that ordinance?
According to the chief, you do not.
Yeah.
So,
You just
because
call
you
it.
changed the language to allow
Right.
the service safety.
So that's one less ordinance we'll actually need to pass. So, the street closure, the noise, the vending. So that will come forward, and we'll start with the process for that. Any questions on that?
No.
And then as for the Ayuba trick-or-treating downtown, I think we have a little bit of leeway there before we get that going, but we need to, so some numbers, maybe we could discuss that at committee in first thing in September, I guess, or would that work? So we need an emergency clause. But maybe that's okay, because I think it's a new situation for us with not having the parking garage. It's a new, without having the funding.
Okay.
Does that seem okay? All right.
Okay.
Okay. East State Street update. We received word a week or so ago, and I think I'm going to turn it over to the Service Safety Director to share with us, and then we can discuss if we need to. But we received word back from ODOT regarding, many may remember, there was a public hearing, and there was many people who came together to discuss options for how to handle the East State Street traffic flow, safety issues, especially around the interchange of 33. So ODOT has spoken.
Yes, ODOT Central Office has determined that the modified diverging diamond model will not be funded. It's because it's nowhere else in the state of Ohio. They're just not willing to take that chance. So they are still, they have funds available, and they are indeed continuing in the design engineering for one of the other alternatives, and they're having to run that map. And that is indeed for the ramp from East State, the northeast corner. So they do believe they can model it well all within their right-of-way. We have already made calls and reached out to both Children's Services and the county commissioners to make them aware that this study is underway right now. We have $2.5 million already that is secured in small city grant funding. We need the additional $2 million in order to build this project, but we have to have a design that they'll recommend and they'll approve. So that's where we are right now.
The actual cost of a ramp would be much more than $2 million. I mean, you're talking about the design and the engineering. I think that's important too. Yes.
One of the things that Andy had indicated and has shared with us, the concept as they go to study it would be similar as you're heading up to Columbus Pass, Lancaster, Canal, Winchester, Hill and Dilly, and you kind of see that red brickish kind of wall. I have heard from people on Strathmore, former mayor, telling me that he hears the noise from the highway existing now. That might actually mitigate some of this. So, but it has to show that it has to show that it will increase the circulation and reduce the number of accidents in that area.
They actually discussed return on investment, so to speak. I mean, how much money they put in, and what's the improvement of service? Use of service, what is it called? Level of service? To make it work. I mean, just the normal four-leaf clover thing was not going to fly either. So.
Right. So, and we'll open it up to council. I had one question, and that is, we have been telling our citizenry that we would be making the paving improvements and some of the improvements on East State Street So how does that, how does that affect what might happen there with that?
It would cost, according to Andy's guesstimate, close to $1 million to go in there and just do the repaving. We don't want to do that. We want to do the resurfacing work with the project as a whole. We're not too far out, depending upon how rapidly they do the design and whether or not we can gain that, to still have a 2016 project. So I haven't lost that yet. That's what we're hopeful. It does mean continued patching. It'll be patching again this winter.
Member Patterson.
Have you heard anything back from the county commissioners on this?
Just that the one county commissioner I spoke with acknowledged that they had been notified. First response, and the only response I received, well, that's all well and good is if it's in their right of way. So.
Member Cochran.
Just want to reiterate neighborhood concerns from the Far East neighborhood because it seems like this project is not really going to affect some of the areas where we have high concentrations of crashes, which are a little further down the road from the East 833 interchange. And all along we've been hearing, well, this project will alleviate some. So, as we're looking toward this project, will this help to alleviate those high crash incidences? We learned recently at a Buckeye Hills Transportation Commission meeting, the intersection right down the street from me, highest rankings for crashes in the city. So that's a major concern for my neighbors, with kids, with elderly people trying to cross that street. Just the sheer number last week going home from the meeting here, I saw yet another crash. So are we going to be seeing some improvement in engineering? I realize there's other work to be done. A friend who's versed in public affairs said, it's education, enforcement, and engineering. So I realize, we need to work at this issue from several different angles, but I just want to make sure we're not forgetting that in this big project.
We're not. The scope is from Home Street, Bob Evans Library, all the way down to Lowe's, to include the pedestrian sidewalk on the south side. In addition, Andy attended the Neighborhood Association executive meeting last week, and we talked about, prohibitive left turns, things that will kind of minimize some of the impacts that are occurring, literally building islands, out in State Street where it makes sense. Also talked about the concept of having a pedestrian signal only in that section as well, that would have the island in the middle for, what do we call it, refuge island, then get you across, and where that would make sense. Those are definitely all still being considered, and we do plan on continuing on pedestrian bicycle, eliminating some of that. It is a high rate, but you also see the severity of those crashes are usually small because it's the bumper, what do you call it? Failure to
Unassured
clear distance failures, yes. So.
And realize that anything we do, of course, will impede traffic at some level if we address the pedestrian side, which of course will make a whole nother subset citizenry not happy.
Well,
I mean, prohibit left-hand
he has
turns.
to be able to keep the traffic moving, 26 or 28,000 vehicles a day. So you're juggling those two things. It is a vibrant economic business corridor as well.
With a residential neighborhood
Yeah.
situated smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I guess we'd always whittle it down to back to 3 lanes like it was in 2000, but I don't think many people would be happy with that. Become a parking lot.
Member Butler.
Thank you. Maybe I can make a kind request that I know we have an agreement with the State Highway Patrol, and they frequently are down on Columbus Road. Perhaps we can kindly request them to direct some of their attention towards East State Street.
I'll ask the chief.
Thanks.
So could we expect at committee here to discuss the whole East State Street? When can you give us September again at committee and talk more about this? Again, I think the citizenry as we discussed with the Coates Run issue tonight, we need to be discussing those issues.
We probably have to wait for ODOT to come back with their.
Okay.
We do, but I mean, it went through a very public process last time.
Right.
I'm sure they also, we have to document the level of public participation. This tonight will count as at least an outreach. But I can't imagine once it comes back, if they're able to, we're going to want to proceed as rapidly as one can.
Do we have an expectation on when we may be
Fall.
receiving an?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully early fall.
Okay.
But supposedly they're under design right now. They have to model that. So.
Okay.
I just one question. So you said the reason ODOT rejected was because there's no other double diamond
Modified
reverse
version diamond.
Yeah.
I was just on a diamond on Richards Road this weekend. Goes over 270. Roberts Road.
Correct. Yes.
Did I say Richards?
That is
Roberts
correct.
Road.
That is a success.
I was just on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
I was driving it going, okay.
But it's the fact that nobody else has this modification of what we were going to do, and then that they couldn't see that it would really merit the benefit of putting that in. So I don't have anything in writing. I just
Right.
have
No,
this
I'm just trying to figure out what their reasoning would be, and I mean, as excuses go, it just doesn't seem that valid. But there we are.
The input I got is that it was not so much, it was just too untried, and they, rather than take the chance and have it not work, I think.
Mm-hmm.
even in Athens.
Yeah.
Which we can do.
Is this one of those moments where maybe we ought to hit the pause button and see where we're going with this?
Yeah, I wonder.
I mean, the alternative solution that I'm hearing, putting the ramp up next to Children's Services, to me is not a particularly nice
We're
thing.
halfway, we realize we've already got some money committed, so the question is,
I understand that.
You put a pause on it, you may lose the momentum. And
That's true.
And then nothing gets improved there. And frankly, I recall the Deputy Director of District 10 saying you should continue to consider these other options.
Correct.
But we all just kind of, we want to try this. Right. So if we pull them all out, and I will, and I can resend that to you, we probably should have given it greater consideration than we did.
Okay, we have several miscellaneouses, things that will be coming forward early in September. And we have, they all kind of have to do with appropriations, so I encourage everybody to look at the unappropriated balance for street rehab, which I think is the majority of where funding would come from. Let's start with the Columbus Road Bike Spur. If you recall, we discussed this a couple months back. We had to go out for bidding because nobody wanted to bid on the entire project. They wanted it to be bid as two separate projects. We're coming in on crunch time because by September, those bids and everything has to be taken care of.
May I clarify?
Yes,
We open
please.
bids tomorrow.
Okay.
And if they're within 10%, but above what's appropriated, we would request an appropriation next Monday in order
Right.
to award the contract. So
Right. So we hope it's
within 10% or
within
less.
10%.
It'd be nice if it's under. But no.
Right. Right.
Do we have the money for 10%?
And again, that's an appropriation issue, which we're going to have to look at our funding. Speaking of something that's gone on, and the mayor just mentioned that, this Columbus Road Bike Path Spur has been going on for several years now. So I hope that we can meet the mark.
we split the bid up, so maybe we can get better pricing, so
Right.
the bridge people can deal with it, and they actually, earth moving contractor side, the actual.
Right. And then, just as a aside, if that doesn't happen, then what?
Search for more
We may
money.
have to search for more money in order to fund this project.
Or hold off until we can generate some more money.
But we have,
Can we do that with
we have
the
grants
federal?
that are associated with
Yes,
different
they-
timelines,
yes.
so we'll have to look at that
Or
very
the
carefully.
pause button.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I just think that's important for everyone to realize. Okay, so next week, hopefully, we'll have the appropriation, or the
If
bid.
needed.
The bid will be ready. and-
Ideally, it all comes in under engineer's estimate tomorrow.
Okay. The other issue is Richland South. We are going to need an increase in September to finish the project and cover all change orders, including the conduit for the fiber optic.
That's correct, but that would be September as we go to close out the project, which I just wanted to inform you in advance that this is going to be needed. So.
Right. So again, there's several projects coming together here, and that's why I'm saying keep an eye on the unappropriated balances. The other issue is the south side bridges. We're asking for an update on the Dairy Lane Bridge and what's going now. Maybe this is weather related with all the, I don't know, but we'll also need an authorization to bid, award, and authorize appropriation right away when we get back in session in September, I believe. Or do you think we need it sooner?
May I check on that? And
yes.
Let the council clerk know. Thank you.
That's what the issue one money's for this year.
Yeah,
is the 3 bridges.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're calling them the South Side Bridge Project.
2 bridges on
Well, we can't do anything with Dairy Lane until Quilt National's over.
One on Dairy Lane, correct.
Yes,
Right.
we've talked to the area about it.
Because the whole street will be closed.
Yeah.
Right. But the other South Side bridges are related also to the Richland Avenue project. So those are all kind of going and moving along.
Yeah, they did a load rating of the bridges. And we needed to do it.
We could not begin this project until after July 1st, so this project has not even begun. So
right.
There will be some more bumps along the road on Richland Avenue.
Oh, joy.
You're not supposed to spend money before you get the award.
Right. The final is the Depot Street Lift Station. That was part of the Union Street project, but we will need the authorization to bid, award, and authorize and appropriate for the grant funds and local money. That'll be first thing in September as well. And we all saw that on our street tour, which is a good thing to
That's
view.
a critical infrastructure grant.
Right.
Critical.
Any other comments on any of these things? Yes, Member Cochran.
Just a bicycle-related note that the city, in partnership with the Office of Sustainability at Ohio University, will be hosting a bicycle celebration to celebrate our designation as a bicycle-friendly community, as well as the reopening of the OU portion of the bike path from Peden down to Stinson. And so that will be next Tuesday, July 21st at 10:30 on the bike path near Peden.
Mm-hmm.
Our esteemed mayor will be speaking along with President Roderick McDavis.
Yes.
And we invite everyone to come and join us. Ride your bike. Parking is free.
Where will the parking be for that event?
Peden Stadium
At
parking
the stadium?
lot,
Okay.
if you have a car. But you can park your bike there too.
If you arrange ahead of time. I think they need guest permits ahead of time.
Right. Check in with the Office of Sustainability if in need of a parking permit.
Yes.
There's public parking meters down there as well.
Right.
And I think there's a reception afterwards, isn't it?
Reception to be held after a short bike ride from that location to near the community center in the at the East State Street Park. I believe it'll be in the under the shelter house near the pool.
Okay.
Free bicycle helmets for children's sized heads to be given away.
To be given away.
Right. Sponsored by the Ohio Health and the Athens City County Health Department.
Thank you, Member Cochran. I think that's it for transportation.
Okay. We'll move into special session with the first item being establishing the quorum with all members present. And we have ordinances for third reading. The first one is, we have 6 of our 7 council members present with Council Member Fall not with us tonight. The ordinance for third reading, the first one is Ordinance 6215. And it's an ordinance granting the renewal of a revocable license to Bruce Brunton, owner, 751 West Union Street, to allow the placement of a sign on the city right-of-way. And this was introduced originally by Councilmember Fall. And it's one of those revocable licenses that comes up periodically for renewal. So
I make a motion to
why don't
accept
you-
6215.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 6215. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 6415 is an ordinance repealing Ordinance 9177, vacating the final plat of Valley Acres subdivision. This was originally introduced by Councilmember Fall. And as I recall, this is thanks to information from Clerk of Council Walker. This is the Valley Acres subdivision, also known as Pine Air Village, formerly the Mobile Home Park, and requesting the vacation of the 42 lots and returning it to one parcel of land. And so requesting our permission to do this since it's within the 3-mile planning jurisdiction of the city.
I move to adopt 6415.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 6415. And are there any additional comments? I'm sensing something from administration. No. Okay, thank you. All those in favor of ordinance 6415 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 6715 is an ordinance establishing a general fund administrative cost allocation policy, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
I move to adopt 6715.
Second.
We've discussed this, and it's basically being dictated by the state auditor that this would be a good way of the city to, what's the word I'm searching for? Thank you.
To allocate
To allocate resources. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment.
That's okay. And as I understand, this is the averaging of two factors from expenses in the administration, both payroll and then all other administrative expenses. They're averaged, and it's reviewed annually so that if adjustments need to be made. Yes, Mayor Weil.
Again, the thrust of this is that the allocation plan for other administration as well as for internal services, which is not being addressed at this particular point in time, should be vetted, at least approved by council. The format that's been put forward, of course, is through the auditor's office. It pretty much does broad strokes what we need to do in terms of how much money the other departments have to feed into the general fund. There are other metrics that you can use. You might want to look at them if need be. This one is, of course, is coming out of Finley, I believe. It's a basic percentage of percentage of budget in general from through all the departments, and then normalized with the percentage of payroll. So it's using actually payroll numbers. The other ways, of course, you could do it is by actual employee numbers. The internal services, as you know, goes by computers and cars, because that reflects our IT side as well as the mechanic side. But again, it's up to you as council to approve this, and that was the recommendation of the state auditors. But this is not the only method. There's other metrics that you could use, and we could explore those down the road. Okay. Again, this fits the bill of what we need to do.
And that's
we've
helpful to
adjusted
have
it
those
by
comments, yes, that we can look at other models, but this gives us a starting point for being consistent, I think, in the cost allocation. So thank you for the perspective on that. So we have a motion and a second for approval of this ordinance 6715. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 6915 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to submit an application to the Local Government Innovation Program for a grant to fund a feasibility study for a joint facility to house Athens City, Athens County, and Ohio University Safety Services. And this is introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe that this is an ordinance, even though that we are in the third reading phase that we need to modify, we need to amend this particular ordinance, unfortunately, but we do. Do I need to make a motion to amend? I'd like to make I should probably state what the amendments are first as we move forward. The amendments would basically be to remove Athens County from this particular ordinance, which would include Athens County 911, the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff's Department, Emergency Communications, but it would retain everything else, which would be Ohio University, as Police Department, as well as Athens Police Department and Athens Fire Department would still be retained within this particular feasibility study. So I would like to entertain a motion to amend this to remove mention of Athens County entities.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there question? Is there discussion prior to voting on the amending?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Member Butler?
I'm curious, what happened, or what, if we're allowed to say?
I think we're allowed to say.
Sure.
Public domain now.
The county commissioners feel that there has been a feasibility study in the past with other, with something such as this, but with the sheriff's office, sheriff's department, and whatnot, and therefore did not want to be included in this for a feasibility study. Mayor, if you'd like to add to that.
As far as I know, they were kind of surprised at it. I think there were some silos that exist within the county side of it. But I suspect the other part is the commitment for dollars probably was not what they anticipated in their budget. So therefore, they're kind of reluctant to do it. In previous studies, and it comes down to, shared services in general. When does it work and when does it not work? I think they're reluctant to develop because realize they've just pulled out of the multi-county EMA at one point. So as a model, they're probably not sure if they want to really participate at this point. And again, I have reservations as well as trying to put all our eggs in one basket in terms of a structure and a place. I have no problem with doing the study, but the idea of having one central law enforcement and emergency management location, and it wouldn't be that. I mean, basically everything, all the administration, all the headquarters would be in one place, whether it's dispatch or just staffing in places. But at the same time, it's worth reviewing from our point of view. Their participation, if they choose not to, is their choice, and we should respect it. So that's why the strikeout.
Okay. Well, thank you for the explanation and discussion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to amend Ordinance 6915 to remove the Athens County entities from the ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, so the ordinance is amended and it now moves to the first reading. It's been read for the first time.
Thank you, Madam President. Is there a deadline or a timeline on this grant going forward that we would need to suspend?
I know it's in early September. I can check on that and get that information to the clerk before
So
Monday.
if we need to suspend next week, we can do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. The ordinance for second reading is Ordinance 7215, an ordinance amending the 2015 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. We now have ordinances for
To be
suspended.
You suspended? Okay. I don't have a pen. Madam President, I first of all would like to suspend the rules, make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Okay.
The reason is this ordinance has to be passed. We have the necessary numbers. Let's do it.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for Ordinance 7215. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Okay, the rules have been suspended.
I move to adopt 7215.
Second.
for the reasons given, must be done now.
Okay.
So,
And this is primarily also making some transfers for cost allocations?
that's correct,
Okay.
yes. This goes back to what we were talking about
Okay.
previously.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve ordinance 7215. All those in favor? Oh, excuse me. Yes, we do have a motion. and a
Yes,
second.
we do.
All those in
Second.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We have an ordinance for first reading, ordinance 7315, an ordinance authorizing the adoption of an agreement with AFSCME Local 2403 concerning wages and working conditions and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
The reason is this contract needs to be authorized and put into effect immediately for the good of the public safety.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules for ordinance 7315. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I move to adopt 7315.
Second.
We've already discussed this in council. This is the new AFSCME labor union agreement that's been, well, they've voted on it and now we have to approve it, so let's vote on it.
We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 7315. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. A resolution for first reading. This is R 0815, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
We discussed this in just, about 45 minutes ago in committee. Madam President, you did a wonderful job of explaining the whole thing. There's nothing more that I can add. This being the first reading, we'll have to go through. No reason to suspend, is there?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Just wanna be
We'll move
sure.
it along.
All right, we'll prolong it.
Pace.
Okay. So,
All right. We have a one reading resolution. This is R 15, a resolution by the City of Athens in support of the Athens County Enhanced Communications Project to improve emergency communications and provide opportunities for enhanced broadband connectivity, introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion, since this is a one reading resolution, a motion to adopt resolution 09-15.
second.
Thank you. Let me read this, since it is a one reading resolution, at least through the whereases, as President Nisley has already read the title. Whereas Athens County 911 intends to apply for a loan from the Ohio Local Government Innovation Fund, LGIF, and whereas emergency communications are an essential component of local government and Ohio University operations, and whereas Athens County, due to its remote rural location and topography relief, has problems with emergency communications and broadband connectivity, and whereas Athens County 911, Ohio University, the City of Athens, the City of Nelsonville, Athens Township have agreed to collaborate with Athens County 911 on a loan application in order to establish the wireless broadband network in Athens County, and whereas Athens City bears no financial responsibility for this loan payment, but agrees to consider being an initial partner in the network, and partners as described in the LGIF loan application have agreed to collaborate as outlined in the memorandum of understanding attached and being a part of the resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, the City of Athens hereby agrees to collaborate with Athens County 911 and to facilitate the creation of a wireless broadband network in Athens County. In Section 2, the ordinance shall be in full force in effect at the earliest moment permitted. under the law passage of this and approval by the mayor.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of this one reading resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The resolution is approved. And I would also then accept a motion for adjournment of our meeting tonight.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned at 9:17 p.m. Thank you very much.